Hey, welcome back to Find My Wings. This is Jesse. Thanks for coming back. I appreciate all the support. We have over 140 subs, we have over 30,000 views, a lot of comments. I've met some awesome people and learned a lot from having this channel. So anything that you can do to help us, we're definitely going to make more content and return the effort that you're putting back here. So likes, subscriptions, and shares are the best way to really support us right now. Now today, I want to talk about 5 things I actually don't recommend doing to this car. These are common things that I've done, things that I see a lot of other people do, and things that I necessarily wouldn't want to do to an FR-S, BRZ, or an H6. And it's going to be very specific to this platform. This is my 2016 Scion FR-S 5-speed manual with some minimal modifications. Check out the videos on my channel to learn a little bit more about what I've done to this car, what I'm doing with this car. Number 1 is going to be wheel spacers. Now, with wheel spacers, I actually didn't mind them. They made the car look a lot better. They didn't have any vibration or some of the things that I was really nervous about, but what they did do was they messed up my scrub radius. So by pulling the wheel out just a little bit, you're actually throwing off a lot of the steering geometry. So you have a shock in the back that comes down kind of on an angle towards basically the center of the tire down here. And so when you have that and you move it out, for me it was 20 millimeters, you're basically adding 20 millimeters to your scrub radius. So the easiest way to really explain what that feels like and what it does to the car is it feels like your wheels are a little bit on the outside of the car. So you're used to driving your wheel and it's nice and responsive. Now you have this responsive piece, but the wheel's more out here. And so when you're turning, the wheel itself feels a little bit wrong. It feels a little bit weird. It wasn't overly confidence inspiring. Now the trade-off, of course, was that it looked awesome. And then it did feel like the car had maybe a little bit more lateral grip as far as that you have a little bit less weight transfer. So it's around 1 to 2% less weight transfer with a 20 millimeter spacer on this car. And you could feel it, but the scrub radius made the car's handling just feel wrong. Now, to me, that made it not worthwhile. That's something I wouldn't want to do to the car again, and it's not something I really advise. If you don't really care about the actual characteristics and the enthusiastic driving profile of this car, wheel spacers are great. They can actually make these stock rims look pretty okay, especially if you put a little bit wider, better tire on it and a wheel spacer. This car can look fine, especially on like a 1-inch drop. But at the end of the day, it threw off the handling characteristics, so be very cautious of wheel spacers. Number 2 is cold air intakes. Now, if you've done the research, if you've been on the forums, you've probably seen this already. A cold air intake on this car, naturally aspirated, does not do very much. The stock airbox is pretty okay. Now the big thing that I saw was the original tube here was ugly and it did actually lose a little bit of power. It is rubber though, so it doesn't heat sink compared to this metal. Now, this is the HKS Premium Suction Kit, and there's a video on it that I'll put up above here, and it'll be in the link below as well, but it uses a stock airbox. It just has this tube, which helps you get that little bit of power that people are seeing in the dyno. It still keeps a sound generator, which I really like. I like my sound generator, I use it, I love the sound. There's also a second piece that would be that snorkel in the front. As you can see here, I do have a snorkel to do a DIY mod with, which might be better. I'm not sure if that's actually gonna add power or reduce power at this point though. And so if you're considering a cold air intake, consider the price of it. This is an expensive sound tube. You can get these for like $30, $40. If they're just polyurethane or something like that. But consider the price, consider if it's going to stay in your car, if it's really worth it, or if it's actually going to give you the performance that you think it might. Number 3, and there is a video, I'll put the link up here somewhere and it'll be down in the comments, is throttle controllers. You may have never considered these, you may have never seen them, and you probably don't need to. If you have something like a stock Honda Civic or a slightly modified Honda Civic that you don't plan on tuning, you don't plan on doing any significant mods to, this helps get your responsiveness up. Basically what these do is you just have a throttle curve. So if you imagine a graph here, you have a linear curve from 0 to 100%. So when I'm pressing the throttle at 0%, it's at 0%. When I'm pressing the throttle at 100%, it's at 100%. Now what this thing does is it can interject. If you want to go in performance mode, it says that it might max out at 80% and it'll register all of your things at about 20% higher. And so now when you're saying let's hit 10% of the throttle, you're actually getting about 12% of the throttle and all the way up. And so this last little 20% over here between 80 and 100%, they don't do anything, but you're a lot quicker to get to that 100% throttle. And so it really just transmits what the pedal's doing to the computer and changes that curve a little bit. It's kind of pointless, it's way too much money. This money is a lot better spent putting it into something like a full tune, which will also let you control some of your throttle sensitivity. Number 4, big rims. As you can see, I put 16s for snow. I do winter drive this car. I'm just, at the end of the day, not a big rim kind of guy. But same deals with the wheel spacers earlier on. A lot of people do jump into this car to put some big giant rubber, big giant tires on it. Now there's a right way and there's a wrong way to do it. Now I think a lot of people rush into it by what's available to them. That's not necessarily the best way to do it on this car. This car is a car that has amazing handling potential. It also has a lot of aesthetic potential. So if you're going for aesthetic potential, big rims actually might be the best way to go. If you're gonna go with some 18-inch, 3-piece works or something, you know, it's gonna look pretty amazing. But the downside is potentially that your car is not gonna handle quite as nicely. So the same deal with the wheel spacers. You have a scrub radius. That's going to be an issue. Now, these OEM rims are also not the heaviest rim in the world. They're kind of light. They're about 21 pounds a piece. And so if you just throw on a giant set of heavy rims, you're going to throw off your handling altogether. You're going to be having more rotational mass that you have to account for, so the car is going to feel more sluggish, and you might throw off your scrub radius if the wheels are going to the outside of the car, and so your handling is going to feel off too, and like the wheels are on the outside of the car. Now you combine those two things and you no longer get the amazing, just zippy, fun characteristics of this car from the factory. So that is why I would err a lot of caution around putting giant rims on this car too early. Do your math, get your scrub radius down to neutral or 0, put the right rims on your car, make it look pretty. Of course, I think I'm going to be going down this path myself, but get the right rims. For this car on my spec, what I aim to do is a 17 by 9 inch rim. So we're going to add 2 inches of width to the rim. It's going to stay at 17 and it's going to be a plus 48. Now that plus 48 is not going to push them out to the side of the car as much as other rims, of course, but what they will do is they'll fit perfectly and they'll put me at a neutral scrub radius. So that would be a formula to get really past this. Number 5. So one of the last pieces here is that I don't necessarily want to think that there's anything that you shouldn't do to this car. This is an amazing car to try stuff out with. You should try everything conceivable. But there's an ideology that you should really buy into in a car like this if you want to get your most out of it. And that's to not buy anything twice and to always buy the first thing once. So jumping into anything too quickly, jumping into a giant turbo kit too quickly on this car might just get you to miss the whole point of what this car is good at. Now there's a lot of controversy, a lot of people think that it needs a turbo, it needs bigger rims, it needs coilovers, all kinds of stuff, but there are actually a lot of reasons why the car shipped the way it shipped. Now for me, I actually really appreciate the OEM characteristics of this car and I don't want to destroy them necessarily, at least not right now, maybe one day in the near future, so stay tuned and see what we do end up doing to this car past all my other videos which you should check out for what's already being done to this car. But at the end of the day, the handling is kind of cool. It's a little bit movie, you can feel the body roll, it's okay, but when you get to learn it stock, you get to really decide what you want the car to be ultimately. The same with the power delivery. If you end up driving this car for a few months and you figure that a turbo will fit your needs, go for it. It's gonna be awesome. This is a perfect car to turbo at the end of the day. But don't jump into it too quickly. Don't waste your money. There is awesome used parts markets for this car, so if you buy something, don't be too scared. You can probably deal that part and be just fine. But don't jump into it. Learn this car stock. And keep in mind that when people are looking for a used Nissan Silvia S14 or a Skyline R32, a stock untouched car goes for a lot more money for a reason. It gives you a base to start with. This car can be just the same. A million other mods that should have been in this video. Let me know if you can pick one of those that you should never put on these cars if you had a horrible experience with. Definitely appreciate it. I want to learn from you and learn with you. Alright, well now you've heard it from me. Keep in mind, all this is subjective. A lot of these things you might do as your very first thing to your car, but in my personal opinion, just looking at a general of somebody that's coming from Stance Nation all the way up to somebody that's doing a Safari build, these are things that I'm not a big fan of, things that I don't think improve the car at least. And so I want to hear from you. Put a comment down below. Let us know if you disagree. Did I piss you off? Do you agree? Did you learn something? I don't know. Let me know. Is there anything else that we should add to this list for the future? But for right now, I want to thank you for coming here, for sitting through this video. This is Jesse, this is Found in Wings. Come back here and we're going to have a lot of videos coming to you about this car and my other car, my 1971 Vauxhall Forenza, which you can learn about in some of my videos on the channel. So thank you very much, and I hope everybody is happy and healthy.